Alrighty, today is Thursday, February the 25th, and this is what we did today. So for our introduction, remember we're getting into globalization, which is just a blend of the world's people and companies, languages, cultures. Just to start us off, I asked the class, what are some types of things that you think could affect our trade with other countries? Kids said stuff like natural disasters, transportation issues, maybe there's a language barrier, maybe one country doesn't like another one. So yeah, we had some really good examples with that. And then after that, I actually started with some new material. So you'll have a project that's actually in Canvas right now. Some people have chosen to work with a partner. Some have chosen to work independently, which is fun. But I'll actually explain the directions to the project tomorrow. But this is the information that you'll need to know to help you understand how to do the research for your next project. So we're going to look at four main factors that affect trade between countries. Those four factors are geography, so like a hurricane, culture, like how you greet someone, economic development, like one country may be wealthy and another country may be in poverty, and then political, like with Donald Trump wanting to get rid of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. So those are the four factors that we're talking about today. So to start us off, I wanted to show you guys a video. It's actually a very informational video. It was pretty good. Here we go. And this is just an overview of international trade to give you a better understanding.
Network of ships, trucks, and planes move massive quantities of goods around the world. Your car might come from South Korea and your t-shirt from Bangladesh. All countries export, sell products and services abroad, and import, buy goods and services from foreign trading partners. These goods are manufactured items or agricultural commodities. Services, a dynamic and growing part of trade, refer to all intangible goods such as advertising and telecommunication. But the trade network is more complex than sellers and buyers. The system of worldwide trade is an intricate web in which lengthy supply chains allow products to be sourced, assembled, packaged, and sold in different parts of the world. The materials for your phone or shoes or the tuna fish you had for lunch might have been produced in one country, processed in another country, assembled in a third country, and packaged somewhere else, all before getting to your local store. How does this make sense? Why can't countries just make their own phones, shoes, or tuna fish and provide more jobs and business domestically? Before the 19th century, most European countries tried to do just that, prioritizing self-sufficiency in a system called mercantilism. Mercantilism aimed to maximize exports, minimize imports, and increase a country's supply of gold. This system led to strict tariffs, or taxes on imports, as a way to not only discourage bringing in goods from abroad, but profit off it. Mercantilism created barriers to international trade. Countries aimed to produce as much as possible on their own, including things they weren't able to make efficiently. In the late 18th century, so-called classical economists refuted these long-held beliefs, championing the idea that societies should trade with one another to be more successful because of comparative advantage. The idea that when countries focus on making things they're comparatively good at and import the rest, everyone benefits. This is known as specialization. And when countries don't have to spend time and resources producing textiles or wine, for example, there's more room for them to innovate and create entirely new products. These classical economists argued that it was counterproductive to judge a country's power on how much gold it could amass. Today, we measure countries and economies on productivity, their ability to utilize their limited resources for maximum value. This metric is known as gross domestic product, which totals the sum of all the final goods and services a country produces in a year. Each country's human, physical, technological, and financial resources determine what that country can produce efficiently and successfully. Costa Rica excels at exporting pineapples and coffee, while Germany exports millions of cars and computers. With the acceptance of these new ideas, international trade took off. Measuring GDP instead of just gold helped boost trade and grow economies. At the same time, advances in technology and travel made remote markets much more accessible. Massive container ships, cargo planes, and cheap, instantaneous communication connected the world's producers with millions of new customers. And after World War II, the newly formed United Nations created the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or GATT. This agreement substantially lowered trade barriers like tariffs and created rules to dictate how countries should trade freely. The GATT became the World Trade Organization in 1995 and tried to eliminate even more obstacles to keep up with the changing world. The WTO expanded the definition of trade to include not just goods, but services, and to create rules governing intellectual property, such as copyright or a patent. The WTO is also an arena for countries to hammer out the rules and regulations of international trade and lodge complaints if they believe those rules aren't followed. According to the principle of comparative advantage, if one country can't sell a high-quality product at a reasonable price point, or new technology makes a business uncompetitive, it will not succeed. Its stores or factories might be forced to close, and jobs will be lost. That country must then adjust its economy around something it can be comparatively good at. This is the nature of international trade. However, some countries and industries are accused of skirting the rules of international trade. And that's where the WTO tries to come in. For example, in the United States, labor unions argue the WTO doesn't adequately protect U.S. wages from being undercut by unfair trade practices in China. And some developing countries say the WTO rules don't take into consideration their unique circumstances. For example, agricultural subsidies provided by wealthy governments make it hard for sellers from smaller or poorer countries to reasonably export their crops to those countries. The WTO has failed to solve these problems. They are especially hard to address because changes to the rules require consensus among the WTO's 164 member countries. Some countries forge bilateral and regional trade agreements to address their particular needs and trade strategies. In 1994, the North American Free Trade Agreement, known as NAFTA, was designed to facilitate more trade among the United States, Mexico, and Canada. NAFTA provided a blueprint for similar types of agreements between other countries. From just 1990 to 2015, world trade volume increased more than five-fold, from 3.5 trillion to 19 trillion. International trade has created a tightly interconnected world economy that's given more people than ever access to cheaper and better goods and services. It's created millions of jobs and strengthened international connections, leading to global stability. At the same time, trade can hurt those individuals, companies, and communities where imports make it impossible for local firms to compete against better or cheaper goods from somewhere else. Trade will inevitably create winners and losers, but it is inseparable from modern life. The challenge then for policymakers is to assist those who have been disadvantaged with support and the training for new jobs, so everyone can continue to benefit from the system that has given more choices to consumers and more work for producers in every corner of the world.
All right. So I thought that was a great video, just to kind of sum everything up about international trade. Some of the organizations that we talked about, like the WTO and like the contract like NAFTA. Yeah, and how the world is just kind of becoming interlocked as one. All right, so the text with this lesson. We will watch the videos that go with these tomorrow, but right now we're just, writing down some examples of what's included under each large category. So these are the subcategories under geography that could positively or negatively impact trade between countries. Of course, location. Like Mexico is just south of the United States, so it's easy for us to trade with Mexico. Weather, we have all four seasons in the United States, so it enables us to grow a lot of different things. whereas countries that are, you know, in the middle of the ocean might get hit by a hurricane and, you know, destroy seaports and airports and destroy their crops. Terrain, as you can see in this picture right here, this is pretty rocky. So this terrain would be harder to cross through than like a highway like 64. If a country has access to the sea for cargo ships to come in, like Japan, it's very easy to ship and receive goods from Japan by cargo boat. And then if a country has great natural resources like bananas and fruits and vegetables and cotton, corn. The second category was culture. So language, if you can't understand the language that somebody is speaking, of course, that will impact your trade deal. Somebody's religion, like assuming just because somebody is wearing a hijab or they're Muslim, meaning that they're a terrorist. Maybe somebody's family, the food that they eat. In the Middle East, you know, they don't import pork because it's against their religion to actually eat pork. So things like that, the values, customs, traditions, relationships, so how they do stuff culturally. Economic development. So this can be anything from how intelligent they are with their education to their technology, their roads, highways, communication systems, like do they have Wi-Fi? Do they have power? Or does the power go out all the time? Because you guys know, just like if you've been watching the news with Texas, no power, no production. You're just trying to survive. So like this road right here would be poor infrastructure. They don't have a road. Can you imagine an 18-wheeler traveling down this road at 15 miles an hour? By the time the truck of chickens got to different locations, the chickens would probably be dead or rotten. And this guy right here, this is what a lot of other countries do, guys. This guy's got maybe 10 chickens in there. Our trucks house hundreds of chickens in one truck. This is all related to how rich or how poor a country is, their economy. That's what economic development is. And then the last category was political. So our government, laws, if a government's not stable, like North Korea, crazy. Maybe a policy or an agreement like NAFTA that encourages international trade. So those are the 4 factors. And that's what we did today. Make sure you go into Canvas, do the exit ticket, and then I will see you guys tomorrow.